latest from here and on other demonstrations that could take place in the next few days.
Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Programming on WTTW is made possible in part by viewers like you and by the following.
In 1945, Walter Smith Sr. opened a family business in his name. 4 generations in, and the Smith family remains committed to the ideals he set forth. Offer furniture for all Chicagoans, including a variety of styles and price points, and provide service to all who enter our doors, including in-store and in-home design assistance. We look forward to welcoming you into the Smith family, just as we have since 1945.
WTTW programming originates from the Renée Crown Public Media Center.
It's time to decide whether he's fish, flesh, fowl, or good red herring.
Well, I think it's nice to see an intelligent face here.
We'll all need our smelling salts in a minute.
Public affairs and news programming on WTTW is made possible in part by the Koplin family, in loving memory of Jean Koplin.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz here in our Northwest Side studio.
And I'm Brandis Friedman reporting live from Chicago's South Shore community.
On the show tonight,
it's not an aspiration, it's something you can achieve.
a White House COVID advisor on keeping equity front and center in the fight against the coronavirus.
I look forward to making sure that we get our fair share of the revenues from this.
A divided city council will soon decide whether sports betting will be allowed in Chicago's sports arenas and stadiums. We break down the debate.
And I think weathering it was the first challenge.
But residents and businesses in South Shore are still facing other challenges and looking ahead to the neighborhood's future. Oof, can the Bears prevent Aaron Rodgers from owning the team once again in Sunday's primetime matchup against the Green Bay Packers?
I'm Angelito, and coming up tonight, I'll introduce you to a local artist who's turning cashmere sweaters into stuffies.
And our sister station WFMT marks 70 years on the air. We look back on some highlights and ahead to Monday's full-day celebration.
In Paris, as I mentioned, I'm in South Shore, where I'll be co-anchoring tonight as part of our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. Now, this community sits just south of Jackson Park, which is, of course, the future home of the Obama Presidential Center. But not everyone in the community here is on the same page about the opening of that library. Also, some residents are facing a growing Lake Michigan. It's eating away at beaches and causing some damage. We'll have a lot more on that and more coming up in just a few minutes. Paris.
And you're right there by the Cultural Center. We'll look forward to that. Thanks, Brandis. And now to some of today's top stories. A Cook County jury found former Empire actor Jussie Smollett guilty on 5 of 6 counts of disorderly conduct. The charges include making a false report to Chicago police. In January 2019, Smollett says he was a victim of a hate crime, an attack prosecutors say he staged. A disorderly conduct charge for a false crime report is a Class 4 felony. Smollett could face up to 3 years in prison and a $25,000 fine on each count. Special prosecutor Dan Webb says the verdict shows he believes Smollett lied on the witness stand and will make that point during sentencing next year. Smollett is expected back in court in January. City Council members will consider settling the lawsuit brought by Anjanette Young. Sources tell WTTW News an agreement is close but not yet final. though the payment to Young would be substantial, likely totaling millions of dollars. Social worker was left handcuffed in her home while naked and pleading for help during a botched police raid in February 2019. The possible settlement comes nearly a year after CBS 2 first aired video of that raid. The City Council's Finance Committee meets Monday morning at 10, and for more on this story, you can visit our website. Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart is calling on car manufacturers to help curb carjackings. Dart is asking automakers to create standardized methods for tracking stolen vehicles. The Sheriff's Office says most cars sold after 2015 have the capability to be tracked, and nearly two-thirds of vehicles stolen in Cook County are 2015 models or newer. Right now, requirements to access tracking information vary depending on the car company. The Sheriff's Office says it's a process that often relies on the carjacking victim to navigate. Excuse me. Carjackings have increased around 43% in Cook County this year compared to 2020. And up next, the debate over in-arena sports betting in Chicago, so please stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabie Family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
It's turned into a high-stakes battle featuring Chicago's major sports teams, Mayor Lightfoot, and a potential Chicago casino operator. City Council tabled a plan to allow in-stadium sports gambling and charge a 2% tax after heated debate, and they'll take it up again next week. And joining us to discuss the sports betting situation are Mara Georges, an attorney at Georges and Sinowecki, representing United Center and Wrigley Field Holdings, and Suzanne Leckard, a managing partner at Convergence Strategy Group, representing Neil Bloom, the head of Rush Street Gaming, which has two bids out there for the potential Chicago casino. Mara Georges, I'll start with you. Opponents of in-stadium sportsbook betting say that it will eat away at potential revenues of the yet-to-be-built Chicago casino. Is that true?
That is absolutely not true, Paris. Even the city's independent study has demonstrated that casino revenues sportsbook have no impact on casino revenues. Even if you were to say sportsbook comprises 1 to 2% of casino revenues, that is a negligible amount that really it has minimal impact on the overall revenues of a casino.
And Suzanne, you're representing Rush Street Gaming, which, as we said, has two bids out there for the potential Chicago casino. If this ordinance allowing the sports book at stadiums passes, how will this impact a future Rush Street Gaming Chicago casino?
Well, first off, I want to say, I have not been afforded the chance to review this union gaming study. I would love to get my hands on a copy of it and see it. But, to that point, sportsbook revenues make up about 1% to casino revenues. However, that does not take into account the bump on the casino floor from those sports bettors that are brought in. So I first want to make that point. But our study, where we looked at the impact of sports books on brick and mortar casinos across the country, it shows that the hit to a casino in Chicago should be about 8.6% of gaming revenues. That's slot and table revenues, because you're not bringing in a particular demographic, that younger demographic that the sports books are attracting.
So various studies. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Paris, that study is based on those flawed assumptions, because that study did not take into account the fact that those people who are in sports books within the sports venue will be spending money at the sports venue, will be spending money throughout the city. Even if they don't go to a casino and spend their money at a casino, they will be spending money at operations that generate tax revenue for the city. And this is really about generating that tax revenue for the city and the economic impact, the positive economic impact and jobs that sportsbook in these sports venues will have for the city of Chicago.
All right, so there's disagreement here on some of these statistics or how these conclusions were drawn at. Suzanne Leckert, if Mr. Bloom, Neil Bloom, the head of Rush Street Gaming, isn't worried about online sports gambling. Let's remember, online sports gambling is happening, and that makes up the majority of the sports betting that happens to this point. If he's not concerned about that, why is he concerned about in-person sports gambling?
Well, so a little bit about the casino gaming industry. The casino gaming industry for the last 10 years has been looking at different ways of bringing in a younger demographic. You know, your typical casino gamer is a middle-aged woman, and casino gaming hasn't been attractive to the younger demographic. Sports betting has been the most promising development in bricks and mortar casinos in the U.S., bar none. That's why there's been so much excitement about it. And what we've seen across the country is every single jurisdiction that has added sports betting to bricks and mortar facilities, they have seen significant increases in casino gaming revenues. Those slot and table revenues have gone up dramatically.
So it's an important prong here for the potential casino. George, I want to pose that question to you. If the vast majority of this is done online, what makes sports owners believe that they can make any kind of a dent if they build sports books in the stadium?
This is about improving the fan experience. You're talking about our Chicago, our hometown sports teams that care about Chicago, care about their fans, and want to provide their fans with the best experience possible. I can tell you, my 90-year-old aunt will go to a Cubs game, and while she's at a Cubs game, she's likely to place a bet on a Cubs game. She is not going to go to a casino and bet any money at the casino. This is about generating revenue based on activity that was authorized by Governor Pritzker and the General Assembly with an overwhelming support by the Black Caucus back in 2019, 2.5 years ago. This is activity that is happening across the state, just not in Chicago. So Chicago's not taking advantage of the economic development, the tax generation, the job creation that Sportsbook provides.
So what you're saying, different demographics here will go into the casino or go online to a sportsbook or go to an in-person sportsbook. Suzanne, as we mentioned, Neil Bloom, Rush Street Gaming, they have 2 of the 5 bids out there to get this Chicago casino. Might they pull out if the city council passes the ordinance to allow sportsbooks and to tax it at 2%?
Well, I can't say whether or not my client would pull out. However, you know, when we crunch the numbers, you know, this potential loss in revenues makes a really tight proposition even tighter, and it could make a Chicago license unviable.
And you're mentioning that on top of the taxes that the city has to pay.
I dispute that, Paris. The city's independent study has shown that sportsbook revenues only make up at the most 1% of casino revenues. As I said, the study cited here is a flawed study. It's a biased study. Even Bally's, who is one of the casino bidders, has put out a written statement saying they have no objection to the ordinance. It's funny how the only person that has an objection to allowing sports books at sports venues in the city of Chicago is a person who has a sports book in the suburbs.
All right, I don't want to get into the various studies here because there's different studies. Some folks have seen certain studies, some folks haven't. Suzanne Lanker, what about that, the fact that Bally's and some of these other potential operators don't see this as the same problem?
You know, I can't speak for Bally's as to what analyses they have done or have not done, or what position they're trying to put themselves in to win the license. So I can't speak to.
All right, and I want to go to the mayor's shifting position, because in 2019, the mayor opposed the idea of sports betting. She said, quote, "I oppose the inclusion of a provision that would open up sports wagering in venues like Soldier Field. Such a proposal has the potential to undermine the viability of any Chicago-based casino through the diversion of customers and revenue from a casino." But now the mayor is in full support of this. Mara Georges, what changed the mayor's mind, do you think?
Her own independent study. You've got Grant Grosvenor, who's testified twice before a joint committee. He has provided a slide deck to the joint committee. He has testified, he is from CBRE, formerly Union Gaming, and he has testified that there is no cannibalization here if sports books were allowed to open in sports venues. there is no impact on the viability of a Chicago casino if this ordinance passes.
All right. And we only have a few seconds. Suzanne Leckert, I want to give you the final word here. What about you? The mayor had your position basically before. Now she's done a complete 180. What do you think that's about?
Well, without seeing this union gaming study, I cannot say for sure, but I can say that every single market that we've looked at, we've seen that sports books have given a bump to the casino floor, and anybody that's saying otherwise is, I would love to see what they're looking at, because that's not what the data bears out. And that's not what we believe, in our professional opinion, in my 15 years of the gaming industry. That's not what we think.
And there's a lobbying on this as we're speaking, I understand, and there will be a likely hearing next Monday, and perhaps they vote again next Monday. So to be continued. And our thanks to Mara Georges and Suzanne Leckert. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And today, the Obama Presidential Center announced that a number of its spaces will be named for historic human and civil rights figures like Holocaust survivor and author Elie Wiesel and pioneering black astronaut Mae Jemison. But as that center marches closer to its opening date, one neighboring community has some concerns about the center's impact on longtime residents. We're talking about the South Shore community, just south of Jackson Park along Lake Michigan, which is also a point of concern for residents. It's tonight's stop on our In Your Neighborhood series, where Brandis Friedman joins us now. Brandis, let's start with the lakefront and the concerns people have there.
Yeah, Paris. In short, it's erosion. Residents say that high lake levels have caused beaches to shrink and damage to infrastructure. So about 2 years ago, some neighbors here formed the Southside Lakefront Erosion Task Force to address this issue. But of course, over the summer, their efforts really ramped up after that tragic condominium collapse in Surfside, Florida over the summer. Now, Sharon Lewis, she lives here in South Shore. She's lived here since the 1960s, and her current building has a bird's eye view of Lake Michigan, a defining part of this community.
The lake, of course, makes it special. The South Shore Cultural Center, I think, is the jewel of the Park District. And then the people. They're wonderful people here, committed people, willing to get involved. And I have to say, if we're involved, our representatives are involved as well. So we are working well with our public officials and hoping to get positive outcomes.
But in recent years, high lake levels and extreme winter storms have caused streets and sewers to flood and caused damage again to lakefront properties. Lewis is part of that Southside Lakefront Erosion Task Force that we mentioned, which wants greater protections for 73rd Street and 73rd Place.
They're both still getting a lot of damage from the lake force storms. That's a big issue for public safety and infrastructure. The street that we're on right now, 73rd Street, it used to be about 3 or 4 feet lower. So this has been built up, and what we see are sinkholes appearing when these big storms occur.
And the task force is proposing a breakwater at 73rd Street and 73rd Place to eliminate those sinkholes and further flooding. It's estimated to cost about $5 million. They hope to have it completed around 2022-23. And as we mentioned, of course, the effect of the coming Obama Presidential Center, it's another source of concern. Now, the Community Benefits Agreement Coalition, also known as the CBA, they've been concerned about it since the library was announced to be going to Jackson Park. Organizer Dixon Romeo says that while they are proud of the former president and his ties to this community, activists already fear that they're seeing residential displacement.
Landlords say, well, you know, hey, Ms. Johnson, I know you've been living here 30 years. You've paid your rent every month. You're a great tenant, but I can do nothing to this unit. I can do nothing to this unit. I can increase the price by 20, 30, 40% and get someone else in there. And so, you know, that's what folks will do if there aren't certain laws and protections put in place, like the ones we've advanced, that try and help sure that renters can stay in the neighborhood, that the city has programs for the renters to be able to become homeowners, and that we have protections for our homeowners.
Dixon says the coalition's made a number of requests to aldermen in the area to protect longtime residents, ranging from establishing a loan fund for purchases and rehabilitations of vacant homes and buildings to making sure there's ample affordable housing set aside for lower income renters. But he also says some of their demands won't cost the city anything, like granting existing longtime residents the right to return. Now, all of that said, Fifth Ward Alderperson Leslie Hairston says that she has not received these demands from the CBA, that instead she has been working with the South Shore Community Compact. That's a group of about 30 organizations in this community, and of course they plan on making public what it is they would like to see that's happening soon. Of course, for some, there is plenty of excitement about the Obama Center coming in nearby. We spoke with the owner of Majani. It is a soul food vegan restaurant about 2 blocks from where we're standing right now. We first met them last year at the beginning of the pandemic, on the second day of our COVID Across Chicago series at the beginning of the pandemic. Now, Chef Sadakia Emanuel says it presents an opportunity for his business. He has had the chance to cater the Obama summits and meet the former president and first lady. He believes a rising tide lifts all boats, thinking that the center could mean a positive transformation for a business like his. In fact, his business was closed today because of staffing shortages, something restaurants are experiencing across the city during this phase of the pandemic. He came in just to meet with us and happened to catch a phone call about a catering order for tomorrow. But he says it's a problem that started at the beginning of this year and intensified over the summer.
Like rolling blackouts kind of situation where we had to close one restaurant to bring that staff to another restaurant. And so, we managed the best we could, but, we've always tried to open at 11 o'clock regardless. And we just had to let go of that and be like, you know what, today we cannot. We just have to go with what's presented to us.
Chef Emanuel says he's also experienced his share of supply chain issues, making adjustments if something can't be delivered on time or delivered at all. Now, coming up, we're going to hear from another community group that is working on reimagining the community of South Shore. We're also going to hear from the state representative from this area to talk a little bit more about those rising lake levels and what can be done to protect residents and their homes. But for now, Paris, back to you.
All right, Brandis, hope Chef Emanuel gets some staff back in there. Love Majani. It's a great place. Thanks so much. COVID cases and hospitalizations are surging. Doctors believe that's still due to the Delta variant, though it's expected Illinois will soon see more cases of the Omicron variant as well. Our Amanda Vinicky spoke with a key White House advisor about how the nation is ready to tackle it with an eye toward equity. Amanda joins us now with the rundown.
Yeah, Paris, it became clear early in the pandemic that Black and brown populations were disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus. Dr. Cameron Webb saw that play out through his work in internal medicine in Virginia, and that has informed his role as senior policy advisor to the White House COVID-19 response team.
And I think that the progress, for a lot of groups certainly is there. If you look nationally, the rate of cases, the rate of hospitalizations and deaths, all much improved in communities of color, even relative to white Americans. And so we've seen really strong improvement, and we owe a lot of that to the vaccination effort. And if you look at vaccines specifically among adults, CDC puts out a national immunization survey every week to get a sense of where we are with the vaccination effort. And, the rates of vaccination among adults are pretty much equivalent between Black, white, and Latino adults. And so that's really good news. It tells us that equity, kind of contrary to what some people believed, it's not an aspiration. It's something you can achieve if you center it.
And centering it, he says, means intentional strategy, like recognizing historical and contemporary dynamics of various communities and keeping that as a priority. Also, again, key part of that outreach, the COVID vaccine. Saturday will mark 1 year since the FDA gave emergency use authorization to that first Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for adult use. But Black and brown individuals are falling behind in Illinois when it comes to getting the booster shot that doctors believe will give extra protection against that Omicron variant. And Dr. Webb, when asked about this, said, give it time. That booster effort, he says, is relatively new.
Also keep in mind the original recommendations for boosters were focused on the over 65 population and other folks who had risk. There are demographic level differences in who's over 65 and where risk lies. And so I think that the CDC's recommendations about a week and a half ago saying that all adults should get boosters, I think that's when you really start that conversation around how can we make sure that all adults are getting those boosters, and we're working overtime to make sure that happens, working with community-based and faith-based organizations, working with partners on the ground and communities all over the country, because the key is making sure that people know why that scientific recommendation was made and know where they can then go to get their boosters.
As of today, the CDC recommending that 16 and 17-year-olds also get that booster shot. The White House's next steps for battling COVID call for rapid response teams to areas where there are rising cases, supplying treatment pills once that is available, and more rapid at-home testing.
Your ability to know if your runny nose or stuffy nose in the middle of wintertime is the typical cold that you tend to have every December, or is COVID, that makes a huge difference for your workplace, for your kids' school, for your community as a whole. So testing, that's certainly a key part of the equation here.
At-home tests, well, you can even get one if they're not sold out, are about $20 each, and that's unaffordable for some, leaving free testing sites that may be inconvenient or have a longer turnaround time as the alternative. Now, the White House planned to distribute millions of at-home tests to community sites, and then also making it so that those with insurance will be able to get reimbursed for buying at-home tests. Critics, though, say that's not enough, noting especially that reimbursement's complicated.
There's no one single way that's going to work for everybody. We know that for a lot of Americans, particularly for folks who've been the hardest hit, for them, it's the ability to get those free tests from their library or get those free tests from a food bank or from a federally qualified health center. So through a different mechanism. When you put these together, you have different strategies to reach different people. And so I think we know that at the end of the day, we want to make sure it's widely available.
And that is on the national front. Taking it back locally, well, Webb, he is in the D.C. area now, but he did spend several years in Chicago when he went to law school at Loyola. Yes, he is both a doctor and a lawyer.
Chicago, there are a lot of amazing leaders, there are a lot of amazing medical centers, and we know they're serving different parts of the community all the time. I think the key is really taking advantage of those resources that you have, connecting it with community. I think I've seen, even in my time in Chicago, some really incredible community-based initiatives, barbershop initiatives, and physicians like Dr. Tom Fisher down at the University of Chicago who are connected to that community-based work. And so there are great folks doing great work at the community level. I think that on-the-ground kind of effort is going to be a key to the ongoing efforts to address some of the disparities, some of the inequities that we're seeing with regard to COVID.
Now, before I'm done here, a couple of notes on COVID. Saturday will mark 2 weeks until Christmas, and Chicago Public Health Commissioner Dr. Ellison Arwady says that makes it a really good time if you're to get the shot, whether it's the booster or maybe you want to be fully vaccinated before the holidays, and it's 2 weeks, therefore, to get that J&J vaccine. So Saturday, really a big deadline. She also says that if you are vaccinated but get what's become to be known as a breakthrough case of COVID, there's still no need to wait to get the booster shot. If you have COVID, you do need to stay at home, that isolation period of at least 10 days. But after that, as soon as you can, she does recommend getting a booster shot. With that, Paris, back to you.
A lot to think about this holiday season. Amanda, thanks very much. And up next, how a local artist is using upcycled cashmere to create stuffed animals that encourage kindness. But first, we take a look at the weather.
Spend Saturday evening with the Voices of Chicago. Latino voices at 6 and Black voices at 6:30. See you on Saturdays.
There's a lot more ahead on the program, including a preview of WFMT's 70th anniversary celebration. But first, a Chicago mother is tapping into her artistic roots with a brand inspired by her children that also pays homage to her mother. Art correspondent Angel Ito introduces us to Fly Little Bird.
Fly little bird, the world is yours.
It's a phrase Jennifer Einerson said to her children growing up nearly every day.
I'm here, and you're going to fail and you're going to succeed, and that's okay, but just go give it a try.
When the pandemic hit and civil unrest unfolded shortly after, she found herself wanting to create a product that could encourage positivity the same way that phrase encouraged her kids.
It's the idea of bringing kindness and compassion into the world and just teaching kids at a younger age that people don't have to look like you to be friends with you and to love and support you.
And with that, Fly Little Bird was born, comprised of a series of either woodland, farm, or circus-themed animals. Each character carries a little birdie, which serves as a reminder that you're never alone when taking a risk.
For a child with autism, I've seen impacts on that. I've seen them be more verbal. I've seen just the comfort they find in these, with just carrying them with them. You know, I have someone who has reached out to me who is older than I am, who says she always has her stuffy on her lap when she is, you know, working with clients. She's a therapist, and so she, like, that gives her a little bit of comfort. So it's just very interesting that it's a broad range, you know? It's like kids love them, but I'm finding that they are having a different impact than just like a stuffed animal.
Now, how exactly are the stuffies made? From upcycled clothing created right in Einerson's home studio. She says each one takes a few hours to make.
So I find cashmere, it's always 100% cashmere because it's super soft. And then when I wash it, it actually shrinks down to make it like a tight fiber, so it's more durable.
But utilizing donation-based organizations to create her stuffies isn't the only way Fly Little Bird gives back.
So a portion of the stuffies proceeds goes to Donate Life America. Can you tell me a little bit about why this organization is so important to you?
10% of all proceeds year-round go to Donate Life America. So that my mom was a donor, my dad is a recipient. Seeing both sides of it, you see the giving and you see the receiving. And both are difficult, but both are amazing. And so I think it's really important to bring awareness to the world about that.
And while Einerson says honoring her mother through Fly Little Bird has had its sad moments, she's proud to continue a craft her mother taught her while also pushing for positivity.
It's a unique, one-of-a-kind gift that not only gives back to, you know, Donate Life America, but it also just creates so much comfort and it encourages kindness and compassion.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
And Jennifer says she plans to create more stuffies in time for spring and hopes to expand the brand even further with children's books. You can visit our website to learn more. And still to come on Chicago Tonight, we'll hear about affordable housing, neighborhood planning, and the ongoing impact of COVID-19 in Chicago's South Shore community. Justin Fields is set to return this Sunday after suffering from rib injuries. Will he help give the Bears a glimpse of a brighter future against the Green Bay Packers? And our sister station WFMT celebrates 70 years on the air. We talk with performers ahead of Monday's day-long celebration. But first, some more of today's top stories. Chicago's top doctor says the city may require proof of COVID-19 vaccination in high-risk settings where masks cannot be worn. Several members of City Council's Health and Human Relations Committee urged Arwady to put requirements in place at a committee meeting. This comes as the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Chicago has reached its highest level since January 2021, before the vaccine was widely available. Dr. Arwady says preliminary conversations are taking place with representatives of business groups on this. Meanwhile, outdoor dining is likely to be extended in Chicago as the city faces another significant wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Members of City Council's Transportation Committee unanimously advanced a measure allowing restaurants and cafes to serve customers outdoors through 2022. The measure would also extend sidewalk cafe permits that are set to expire in February until 2023. This year, city officials allowed more than 300 restaurants to serve diners outside. Officials say about 42 eateries are still operating outdoors despite the cold weather. The proposal is expected to be approved at next Wednesday's City Council meeting. A Cook County judge denies bail for a man charged in the killing of a Chinatown resident. Prosecutors say 71-year-old Woom Sing Se was executed in broad daylight Tuesday afternoon. They say the suspect, 23-year-old Alfonso Joyner, fired nearly 24 shots at Se in 3 separate volleys. Se suffered multiple gunshot wounds to his head, hip, and neck. He was pronounced dead at Stroger Hospital. Cook County prosecutors say police arrested Joyner just over an hour after shooting occurred. Joyner is charged with first-degree murder and aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. And now we go back to Brandis, who has spent the day in South Shore as part of our In Your Neighborhood series. Brandis.
Yeah, Paris, that's right. We're joined now by State Representative Curtis J. Tarver, the second who represents this area, of course. Thank you for joining us tonight, Representative. How have you been supporting the Southside Lakefront Erosion Task Force?
Well, we formed it about 2 years ago, right after I came into office. There was a disconnect between residents and the city, the state, and the federal level. And the purpose of it was to just get individuals together who are very passionate about the issue and to allow them to advocate to bring some resources to bear. My involvement has been more of a facilitator and trying to make sure the questions get answered for those individuals.
What could the state do to help with some of the projects that those residents are proposing? For example, that breakwater at 73rd Street.
Well, I think, with infrastructure funds from the state and or the federal government, there's a lot to be done to just at least stem, it's probably a bad pun, but to stem the tide. There's water that is coming not only and affecting private property, but US 41, so it affects bus routes. It affects individuals trying to commute to get to and from work and school. And so I think, with IDOT and CDOT working together, there's, bringing some funds to the area, we can certainly do better than we have in the past.
Of course, you mentioned, the federal funds as well. Now that federal infrastructure bill is law, are you hoping that some of those funds can be applied to projects in this community?
I'm hoping, I'm praying, I am lobbying for whatever that's worth with, our congressional officials as well. I certainly hope that those funds will help out. I mean, I think we're looking at $17 billion or so. When you look at the cost to really have a dramatic effect over in this area, it's less than pennies on the dollar. So I'm sincerely hoping that we get some of those funds.
And of course, you've been pretty involved with the replacement of water service lines, replacing those lead lines. Are you hoping that some of those funds can be used for that as well?
I do. I mean, I never thought that even when we passed the bill at the state level that the city or the state would have enough money in and of itself, to do so. But with this amount of historic funds coming into the state, I certainly hope we can do something about fresh drinking water for every individual.
Absolutely. What's it going to take? How long before you feel like you've seen some movement? What do you need?
Well, none of it will be soon enough. So, I think, in the next few months or so, we get back down to Springfield, we'll be having some very serious conversations about how we appropriate those funds. It'll be, top of the list. Water, everything at this point is atop the list for myself and my district.
And of course, before we let you go, COVID in this community, in this zip code right here, it's up 74% over last week. Only about 50%, a little over 50% of residents have completed the entire series of the vaccine. How would you say COVID has impacted this community?
Oh, I mean, and tremendously. It's unfortunate because we saw this very early on when we were trying to get just testing facilities, and those weren't stood up, very quickly. And then there's just this general, from people that I've talked to, concern about, the vaccine itself and then different variants of the of COVID. But hopefully, with conversations like these and getting the word out, more people will get vaccinated, particularly children as well. Now that they're, in school full time. So, I'll do the best that I can, and it's certainly very important to me, my community.
Absolutely, I'm sure. State Representative Curtis J. Tarver, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In Paris, of course, we'll have more from the South Shore community, where we are right now, outside of the South Shore Cultural Center. But for now, Paris, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Brandis. The NFL's most storied rivalry hasn't been much of a rivalry in recent years, but the Bears will take another crack at team shareholder Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in prime time at Lambeau Field, and this will feature rookie quarterback Justin Fields coming back from a ribs injury. Joining us now is James Big Cat Williams, offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears from 1991 to 2002. Big Cat, great to see you as always. So Justin Fields back on the field, that's a reason to watch. What are you expecting from him on Sunday night?
Well, it'll be interesting. He, like you said, he's just getting back from what we now know was, I think he said 3 cracked ribs. So it's going to be interesting, to see his pain threshold, to see how he throws the ball, because now you're talking about a quarterback that is going to go out there and he's going to have extra protection on. So he's going to have maybe possibly a flap jacket on, which is going to limit his movement a little bit and his flexibility. So we'll just have to see once he gets out there how it affects the way he throws the ball and the way he moves around.
And in these remaining games, if you're the Bears staff, how do you balance the need to get him some experience, to get him reps, versus needing to keep him healthy?
Yeah, that's a hard question because, we all know that he is the quarterback of the future. We're hoping he's a great quarterback of the future, and you would hate to see anything prolong his time off the field. So, him going out here and his ribs not being fully healed or not being as good as they think they are, it could be a detriment. But, he's a young kid. He wants to play. He's tough. And, those are the things that we've been looking for in a quarterback. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope he's realized a lot of good things as far as getting down and getting out of bounds instead of getting hit.
And he's an accurate passer for the most part, which is another thing we've been looking for. On the defensive side, the Bears' defense hasn't played terrible, but they've struggled with injuries. Can they put a defense on the field that can contain Aaron Rodgers on Sunday?
It's the injuries, man. You're at a point in time right now where you have so many guys down. You have a few hopefully coming back, but you're missing key pieces. And when you're missing key pieces, you're forced to put those second string players in there. And those second and third string players are second and third string players for a reason. So, with Mack being out, with Hicks playing injured when he has been back, with Goldman just seeming to find his stride, it's a hard, you're asking a lot out of that defense, but they've got to figure out a way to either simplify things or just get a better product on the field. And I think at this time in the year, it just seems a lot easier to simplify things. And, maybe you only go out there and run a couple forms of your defense and only a couple blitzes, but things that guys can run at full speed because they don't have to think a lot while they're out there.
Speaking of this time of year, Big Cat, you were on your fair share of teams that didn't make the playoffs. How do you get players motivated when it's clear the season's going to end at the end of the regular season and the franchise is on the precipice of what we think is big-time change?
Well, I think for each player, for each individual player, it's different. I know for myself, it was, I was a free agent when I came into this game. So I always felt like I was looking over my shoulder. I always felt like I had to perform because I always knew the cameras and the lights were on you as far as if you don't perform, they're looking for somebody better to put in your place. So I think a lot of the older guys understand that, and they will pass it on to the younger guys. You're not out here just to make the Bears look good. You're out here fighting for your livelihood, for your career, for your family, to put food on the table. So, these guys, they have a lot of motivation. Now it's just about getting them all together and performing the right way.
And the fact that Aaron Rodgers made those comments about he owns the Bears, I think he was directing those at the fans. Does the coaching staff use something like that as motivation?
That sounds like a Saturday night speech to me, man. They are going to go in, and I doubt it if they'll talk about it a lot during the week as far as coaches to players. But I'm almost positive that Nagy will have something to say about it in that pre-game speech that he gives to the team, showing them the things that they need to do, talking about it, and just talking about, I don't know how he'll put it, but it'll be in a form that it was disrespectful to every single individual player and member of the Bears.
So maybe they'll present with him some legal agreement divesting all his shares in the team after the game if it goes the Bears' way. All right, so what is your prediction for Sunday night?
Unfortunately, we're still on the bad side of the coin right now. The Packers have a few injuries. They're going to get a couple guys back, but I don't think they'll actually be back for the Bears game. But, you know, the Packers are a team that could be coming back a little bit stronger after this bye week. So, you know, a 31-17 game, hopefully the Bears can score 17 or more points.
Well, and what matters is the development of Justin Fields, as you mentioned, the future franchise quarterback. All right, James Big Cat Williams, thanks so much.
Bears, thanks again, man.
And now we check back in with Brandis, who is co-anchoring tonight's show from South Shore as part of our In Your Neighborhood series. Brandis.
Yeah, that's right, Paris. You know, it's not an In Your Neighborhood series unless you get a train going right by the live shot. So there's a Metro train leaving the area right now. Earlier today, though, I spoke with Val Free of the Neighborhood Network Alliance. She's the project manager for a community visioning effort called Reimagine South Shore. And I began by asking her about the challenges that residents and local organizations would like to see addressed.
Well, definitely housing is one of them. Arts and culture is another, public safety, economic development, health and wellness.
What are the challenges? How do you want all of these things to get better? How is the community not getting, you know, all of those needs met?
Well, you have to realize for a long time, funders never saw South Shore as a neighborhood that needed those things. We had to wait until disinvestment came to get any resources. So there's that where there's a lack of resources. We waited 6 years for a grocery store. So imagine like now that the Obama Center is coming, investment is coming, people have their eyes on South Shore, and now things are beginning to move.
What, obviously you've been working with, like you said, a lot of block club organizations and other community organizations and residents. What have you been hearing? What are the key points that those residents would like to see?
Well, the number one key point is housing. So,
affordable housing.
Well, not necessarily affordable housing because we have a large stock of middle to upper income residents here. We do have affordable housing here, so it's not that we don't have it. But when we talk about the most vulnerable people in South Shore, they would be the condominium owners because our community is aging. They've been in their condominiums for a while. Condominiums are not as stable as they used to be. We're looking at developers come in and take over. Those type of things are happening. So those are the most vulnerable people in the community or residents. And I can say that for sure because I've been organizing in South Shore for about 12 years now. So I would tell you that from the ear on the ground and the people who come out, that's one of the main things. Displacement in a way where we need to make sure that the folks who've been here stay here. Yeah.
And I mentioned affordable housing only because we've also spoken with the folks at the Obama CBA, the Community Benefits Agreement Coalition, and affordable housing is something they speak of a lot. But aside from that, you know, we've heard a lot of their concerns with regard to the Obama Center being built nearby. Do their concerns overlap with the ones that you all are working on as well? And where do you align?
In some ways, in terms of home ownership, that does align with ours. However, that group does not have a base in South Shore to speak about South Shore. So we need to we have all of the organizations that are coming together around this issue, South Shore Works, the Chamber of Commerce, and the NNA, and we all have our own base. South Shore Works have a base of nonprofit organizations in the community. South Shore Chamber has a base of businesses in the community, and we have the base of residents in the community. So we're all coming together to make sure that community members know that we have been hearing them through the quality of life plan that we're working on, but also just getting the word out on what the asks have been and what they are.
So a lot of organizations clearly at work here in South Shore. Free also says that another way to keep longtime community members in South Shore is a so-called racial maintenance integration ordinance, like the ones in Beverly and in Oak Park, to ensure that 51% of the indigenous residents of the neighborhood are able to remain there. And Paris, I'll be back to wrap it up with you in just a bit, but for now, back to you.
Okay, Brandis, we'll see you at the end of the show. And up next, celebrating our sister station WFMT for its 70 years on the air. But first, we take a look at some events happening around town this weekend. WFMT, our sister station, is celebrating 70 years on the air. Chicago's classical music and fine arts radio station first hit the airwaves in December 1951. On Monday, they'll be live from Northeastern Illinois University's Jewel Box Recital Hall for a day full of live performances. And joining us for a preview of Monday's celebration and a look back at WFMT over the years are George Preston, WFMT Vice President and General Manager, Chicago-based American roots and blues fiddle player, singer-songwriter Ann Harris, and Blake Anthony Johnson, CEO of the Chicago Sinfonietta. Thank you all for joining us. George, it looks like you're right above our studio, about 2 floors here in the office. Great to see you.
I'm in the building. Good to see
you're
you,
still
buddy.
just burning that midnight oil. 70 years on Monday. Tell us about how the station was founded back in 1951.
Well, it was really a mom and pop and dog operation from what we hear. And we're going to hear some archival audio on Monday, including the very first voice that was heard on WFMT all those years ago. We'll hear from Rita Jacobs-Willens, Norm Pellegrini, Studs Terkel, other great artists in archival audio, which is mind-blowing to hear. But we also have this tremendous slate of live performances coming up, 9 in all on Monday from 10 until 7 p.m.
And as we mentioned, we have some of the live performers or representatives of the groups performing right here with us. Ann Harris, as a performer, what does it mean to the city's music scene to have a station like WFMT that endures, that does programming like Midnight Special, and that plays music that you just can't hear anywhere else?
Well, I think you just exactly.
I just answered my question. That's a cardinal sin.
You
But anyway.
really did. I mean, it's a treasure and a treasure trove that I think the community really appreciates. That you're going to get to hear a slice of Chicago's diverse and incredible local artists that you're not going to hear in any other public format. And that support from the artist perspective is invaluable, of course, and I think that's probably stands to be true as well for the listeners of this station. This is a gem, and it's a hub of cultural gold, local Chicago cultural gold, really.
And Blake Anthony Johnson is head of the Sinfonietta. I'll pose that same question to you. What does it mean to Chicago's classical performance scene to have this station here?
Well, when I think of symphonic music, I think of radio. And so Chicago Sinfonietta, of course, really, really values and cherishes that avenue for people to engage with music through radio. And so for us, it's just nice that it's actually in our city. We, I think, are very, very fortunate and a little bit spoiled, I have to say, that we have all of these amazing resources available to all. And so it's really just a treasure.
And George, you mentioned those amazing names associated through the years with WFMT, Studs Terkel, Norm Pellegrini, Midnight Special. WFMT's bucked the trends around the country. A lot of classical radio stations struggled over the last several decades. WFMT thrives. What is so enduring about WFMT?
Well, you know, we have a legacy, I think, of respecting the intelligence of our listeners, and certainly our programming has evolved over the years, but it's always been highly diverse in a unique way. And we are trying to be intentionally inclusive about the music that we program and the artists that we feature, and about the entire community, the music community that we hope to represent. So I think that listeners understand that, and they really appreciate it, and that, you know, music changes and artists come and go, but the core of our mission really stays the same, with a tremendously varied mix of music that is satisfying on a deep level. And I think over the past couple of years, even more critical and satisfying to our listeners and to the artists in and around Chicago.
And certainly a diverse mix of music at this live performance at Northeastern on Monday. And I want to take a look at one of the performances that's going to be happening. That's from Ann Harris. Let's take a look at a clip. Beautiful video, too. Ann Harris, tell us about this song, Hymn for Her, and why you chose this for the celebration.
I wrote this song a couple of years ago because a great aunt of mine had passed, and I wasn't particularly close with her, but I grew up hearing stories about her from my mother about what a strong, progressive woman she was, and just an incredible force on the East Coast, one of the first women of color to be self-supporting, to be a professional, to wear pantsuits, to own her own flat in Brooklyn. And she did many, many great things. And it's a hymn for her, literally, because it's an honoring of part of my lineage, of my ancestors. And I like to carry in my shows and in my performances a bit of myself, my own history, my personal past, and something about this instrumental really speaks through to that.
A very personal selection for Monday. And Blake Anthony, tell us what Chicago Sinfonietta has in store for this festival on Monday.
Absolutely. I think George mentioned this, but so much of our alignment is about equity, diversity, and inclusion. So as one of the national leaders in championing equity, diversity, and inclusion, you'll see that, of course, in our programming amongst many other aspects. And so you'll see Piazzolla, which is our music director, Smytris Chen, one of her favorite composers. I kind of got her through the first initial parts of the shutdown, so Libertango. And then Valerie Coleman, portraits of Josephine, really a tribute to Josephine Baker and a nod to our Project W, which is a whole complete album of really putting female composers front and center. And then also something that just will put people in the holiday spirit. I have a little jingle dreidel is actually the name of it. And we have a lot of Yiddish ties on our staff, but also my mentor, Michael Tilson Thomas, his family is really known for bringing Yiddish theater to America. So for me, it's kind of, it tickles my spirit a little bit. So just three little treats of what we do kind of every day with Chicago Sinfonietta.
That's totally diverse. The grab bag there. Love Astor Piazzolla, that Argentinian tango. All right, so this is Monday, and listeners can tune in live on WFMT, and our thanks to George Preston, Ann Harris, and Blake Anthony Johnson.
Thank you, Paris.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabie Family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news.
You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And be sure to join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Weekend Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great evening.
Closed captioning is made possible by Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm which is proud to honor founder and senior partner Robert A. Clifford and partner Shannon McNulty for their award for excellence in pro bono and public